Alright, everybody. Last video on properties and notes for some of these shapes. We have the unusual trapezoid and kite. So, what exactly is a trapezoid? How is it different from a parallelogram? Well, a parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides, and a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with one pair of parallel sides. So that is part of what makes this a trapezoid. The two parallel parts of the trapezoid are usually called bases, and then the sides are called legs. So that's just a little bit of extra vocab for you. Now we are going to mainly concern ourselves with trapezoids that are called isosceles trapezoids. They have a little bit of some special stuff to them. So, for example, one thing that we're going to know is that a trapezoid is isosceles if and only if its base angles are congruent. So that means two things. One, this angle is going to be equal to this angle, congruent I should say, and two, this will be congruent to this one. If that's true, it's an isosceles trapezoid, which means that this side length is the same as this side length. Another way we can tell is that a trapezoid is isosceles if and only if its diagonals are congruent. So if we draw from this corner here and this corner here, and those lengths, and by this dash I mean the entire length, are congruent, then we know that it's an isosceles trapezoid. So just keep in mind the property about the angles being congruent and the meaning those side lengths are also congruent. Remember, generally, if you need to say that a trapezoid is a trapezoid, you need to test to see that one of the pairs of sides is parallel. One of the pairs of sides is parallel, and then that the other one is not. So that's about it for trapezoids. Kites are the last shape that we have here, and they're called as such because of how they look. They do kind of look like kites. Typically, you'll see them kind of looking like this. So that's kind of what they look like. And what a kite is it is a quadrilateral with no parallel lines, but two sets of congruent pairs of sides. And those pairs of sides need to be next to each other. They can't be across the shape. So, for example, these two could be the same, and these two could be the same. And that would make this a proper kite. Kites have a few, well, actually two properties, as you can see here. One of them is that the diagonals are perpendicular, which is why I think kites and rhombi are confused so often, because they both have that property where if we draw the diagonals in, they're going to make these perpendicular lines. Second property that we have is that there is one pair of opposite congruent angles. That is always going to be the angle pair that is the hinge between the two different side lengths. So, right in between the two different side lengths is where you have your two angles that are the same. The other two are not necessarily the same. So that is really about it for the properties of these shapes. Stay tuned. There is another video coming up with examples that relate to these two shapes, the trapezoid and the kite. So